Hi, everybody. My name is Elaine Kelly, and I work here at the Leesburg Public Library, and I want to welcome everybody to our class today on tracking your expenses using Microsoft Excel. I teach a number of the classes here at the library on various software packages through Microsoft Office, as well as I also um, teach anything about any of our devices, whether it be an iPhone. I do the tech help. I also teach Windows 10. So you're welcome to give a call into the library at any time based on any of those packages. If you run into any difficulties, the staff here at the library are always available to you to be able to work through your issue and get you beyond the obstacle and back up and running. Today's class is all about taking and applying the software to create a very practical usage for you at home. Many times when we learn software packages, it's wonderful while we're in the class, we know what to do in various different areas. But then when we go home, it's like, what do we do with it? And this particular application is very, very useful for you. What we're going to do is we're going to first going to go through a small PowerPoint and talking about budgets in general, also in relation to getting ready for preparing taxes. Now, I do want to state that I am not a tax preparer. I'm not a certified public accountant, but I've had a lot of exposure to that area based on some familial connections, as well as I have worked in the tax office. And overhearing the questions that are asked of people as they come in to prepare has really sparked the need to be able to take what is a simple budget and create reminder notes for yourself as to what to capture. And we'll talk through that as we go a little bit further. We'll talk a little bit about what Excel is. I'll give you a little bit of a reminder. And then I will also then pull up the template and we'll walk through going ahead and customizing at that point. All right, so here we go. At any time, if you have any questions for me, please just press your space bar and continue to hold it down. You can ask your question, and then when you release the space bar, you will be remuted and I'll be able to answer for you. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about budgets and tax. What is Excel? We're going to get familiar with the worksheet at the beginning, talk about templates in general, and then we're going to actually go into it. I first want to begin with unpacking all of the materials that I sent to you. One is the actual template that we will be using. It should be labeled as Microsoft Excel Tracking Your Expenses template. I'll be actually showing you how to find it inside of Excel. So you have that reference also. You should have a copy of these slides that we're going to be going through here. They're at your disposal for any reference that you have afterwards. I've also sent you an instruction sheet, which lists all of the instructions step by step on how to customize the template, giving you an ability to go back and reference as you do your own work for your own budget at home, as well as I have a quick reference guide. These are some common calculations or formulas that are used inside of Excel that I thought may be handy for you to have at the ready when you're working on your own things at home. Now, this is considered a beginning course. We're not going to get into a lot of fine detail. However, coming up in the future, we will be having a couple little small segment classes on very particular items inside of Excel. So keep an eye on our Facebook page so that way you know when those classes are going to occur. And I'll talk a little bit more about the first one that we're going to have in March at the end of this class. All right, let's start with talking about a budget. You can have a budget referred to in two different ways. One is a verb, which is the process of actually creating a plan of how to spend your money. And then you have the actual noun, okay, which a budget, you're talking about, I've got my spending plan arranged. I know what my income is. I know what my expenditures are about roughly going to be. And my ultimate goal is, of course, to make sure that I have enough money to cover all of those expenditures. and knowing that sometimes it becomes a little bit more challenging than others. But the true goal is to either have it match or to have more on favor more on the side of saving versus spending. The advantages of tracking a budget is that you're able to see spending habits and trends. I know for a fact from myself that towards the end of the year, when I'm buying for Christmas presents or just preparing for the startup of the next year, I spend a good amount of money at that particular time. Why? Because a lot of my annual bills kind of occur at that particular moment. That's when I dole them out. But also the fact of I have a lot of other things that buy for my family or myself at that point. I know that that's coming, so having that knowledge ahead of time allows me to plan to be able to have money stockpiled for that event. You can also identify issues inside of your budget. You may not be aware of how much money that you're spending out, let's say for a credit card or a particular expenditure. You thought it was this number, but in reality, it's this number. And just seeing that those two things jive are allowing you the ability to react and to take control over your spending habits. You can also compare with prior years to see if you have some new vendors that you need to identify, or if you have some habits that you need to start to implement for yourself. Lots of times people switch their vendors to try to get better pricing per month for certain utilities. Wonderful practice. But to truly see, did it impact your bottom line from last year to this year, you need to have those two numbers gathered together and actually be able to compare. Sometimes people even do it on a monthly basis just to make sure that everything is on track. And the last thing that you can use for a budget is that you have the ability to plan for next year. The assumption is that most, if not all, of your expenditures that you would be having for the current year would translate to next year. So unless something immediately falls off that's rather large, okay, you can pretty much say, this is what I'm going to have to spend for next year. And you would be able to take a look at your income streams at that point and say, hey, I need to increase, I need to add a second job, pick up some extra work, however, to be able to make sure that you cover everything over there. Now, if we turn our attention to tax prep, a budget also helps your tax preparer create your documents for you. And what you want to look at is when you go to a tax preparer, you come prepared with all of the information that they need to do your document in the first sitting. Many times I have witnessed people come in to have their taxes done. They have all of their documents, and then the preparer starts to ask certain questions of them. And it's just as if they hit a tape recorder and they were playing it off, because they're the same questions that they ask to pretty much everybody if they don't bring it in. And if they'll say, oh, yes, I do have that, I didn't bring it with me, I'll have to call you or get back to you with that information. Tax preparer says, wonderful, here's my contact information. And everybody shakes hands and the people leave the office at that point. Well, what happens are those documents, okay, they're put over to the side in a pending pile. And the tax preparer has already done some initial work on it, but now it's sitting in that particular pile waiting for your information to come back to them so they can finish keying in that particular area. All right, no work's been done on it. It's still sitting in the pending pile. Now, if that tax preparer has to call you to get that information or remind you that they are still waiting for it, then they've got a designated person inside of their office, or they themselves are giving you a call. They call you, they charge you, okay, for that amount of time. Once you get that information, however many back and forth pieces of communication it is, then they'll take it out of the pending pile, they'll bring it back in front of themselves, and they'll key it in to finish it. All right. They're not going to sit there and just twiddle their thumbs waiting for you to answer and still have it there in front of them. They're going to go on to something else. Each time that a person has to pick up that piece of your file, bring it back in front of them, to call you to get that information or to reassemble it and all, you get charged extra money. Now, tax bills aren't cheap by any means. There's only a few services out there that are free. So if you want to have your tax return returned to you and prepared for the IRS or submitted on your behalf to the IRS very quickly, it's to your advantage to have all sorts of documents already with you when you walk into the door for your first appointment. So what you're going to be looking at is you want to make sure that you bring in any annual expenses, including medical. You want to do any charitable contributions. And again, this is from this little tape recorder that I kept overhearing them ask all these different times. If you have any business or rental expenses, and what they're looking specifically there are for equipment purchases, your mileage or travel expenses not reimbursed by a parent company, you have any site improvements, and you have any operating costs, and that does include property tax. If you have bought any sort of new vehicle or sports equipment, they're going to ask you for what your sales tax was that you paid. So if during the course of the year you bought a brand new car, you paid some sales tax in there. Make sure that you bring that with you. And this is another key one there, and we'll go into that a little bit more in a second, but it's a reminder of legal agreements. Not that I wish it on anybody, but if you happen to go through a divorce and you split property up, one of the agreements inside of there is how to take credit for certain items that you used to own jointly with another person. This could be child custody. So on even years, you get to claim the child credit. On odd years, your partner got to claim the child credit. Putting those reminder of legal agreements that impact your tax document on some piece of paper that could be readily put in front of the tax preparer at the time of your appointment works to your advantage. They don't have to go back and research past years to remember what that rule was. Or when you review your document on receipt of your tax return, you don't have to call out the fact that something is incorrect and they have to make an adjustment on it. You want to try to make sure that they have all the information up front when you sit down with them. And we'll talk about how to put all of this stuff into an annual budget. So right now, I just want to talk about how you may track your data or your expenses now. And any of these pictures that you see here on your screen are perfectly, they're perfectly well. They operate well within your organizational system, but they are not good for the tax preparer, okay? Instead of having a box labeled receipts, okay, you really want to come in and you want to have your stuff totaled already. Because if you happen to bring in that box or, various different ways, even with the ledger, one of the other images that you see there on your screen, okay, they're going to hand it up, accept it very nicely from you, but then they're going to hand it off to a person in their office and say, could you please total these for this person? All right, and that individual is going to sit there with a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet, and they're going to enter each one of these things in to get the grand total, the true number that the tax preparer needs, okay? So having all of this information already inside of Excel, which can tabulate for you, is to your advantage. And remember, if your tax preparer has to wait on answers, whether it be this associate totaling up all of your loose receipts or waiting on answers from you because you forgot to bring something in, your tax return is placed to the side and you have to wait until they work it back into their schedule to get it back in front of them to be able to prepare that return, okay? I'm just trying to kind of save you some time and potentially save you some money because you want less people to handle your documents. All right, we're getting set to go into Excel right now. And I know that all of you are pretty familiar with the computer, but I at least wanted to just kind of give a quick reminder to everything. On the mouse, you have a left and you have a right button. And the red on my image here, the red line there on the center of the mouse is our thumb wheel, and that will allow you to scroll up and down the page. We're actually going to use all three of these today. And I just wanted to remind you that the left mouse button means that it's action oriented. We're telling the system, do what I'm telling you to do right now. The right mouse button gives you the ability to access hidden menus or pick lists, and it gives you alternate activities that you can select from, right? It means give me options. So right is options, left is action. And again, the red is the scroll bar. So what exactly is Excel? Excel is a component of Microsoft Office, and you can see all the various different types of services that are included inside of a Microsoft Office package listed down there at the bottom. The advantage of having a Microsoft Office software package is that it can talk to one or more of these other programs at the same time. You can take a extraction from one software and put it into another software. So even if we have our graph here that we're going to generate for our Microsoft budget, we can actually capture that graph, just hit copy, and I can open up a Word document, I can hit paste, and there is my graph. So it can actually talk back and forth, which is very good, and you can take and move information from one to the other. Excel itself is the specific tool out of this entire list here that stores, analyzes, and then reports on specific activities. It is really the number cruncher. It is the analyzer of all of these programs. Word is something that you can do somewhat with it, but it's really the document generator. PowerPoint is the presenter, exactly what we're looking at right here. I'm not creating, I'm not analyzing any sort of information. I'm just creating for you some slides that we can talk our way through. OneNote just captures random notes, meeting notes, etc. You can access that from external sites. Outlook is its mail. Okay, we're just shifting documents from one person to another. Publisher is a marketing tool that will be able to generate various marketing items. And Access is a database. Now, if you have a lot of information, okay, Excel can hold quite a bit. But if you're really trying to capture long-term, a lot of pieces of information, like say for instance, inventory, where you're tracking stuff from going from point A to point B, you're looking at stock, replenishment, you're talking about depletion, but you're talking about transactions. Again, it's a particular item. It's a lot of moving parts. Excel can do part of that, but that's the true joy of Access in there, is that it can actually capture a lot more. And then you can take and export a file from Access and dump it into Excel to analyze. So there's a lot of interaction there, but Excel is really the tool that analyzes data. Some general pieces of vocabulary. A worksheet is the current active view that we're going to see when we first get into Microsoft Excel. You can put more than one worksheet in a workbook. Workbook is another term for the actual file, okay? So when you save an Excel workbook, you're creating the file for it. Workbook and file is just synonymous with one another. It really contains 2 or more sheets inside of it. And then you have the calculations, which is a result of formulas added. All right, this is just a general review of some of the areas that you're going to hear me call out, and it's also going to be present inside of the instruction sheet that I've sent you. All right, up on the top of your screen, you're going to see tabs that are labeled home, insert, page layout, that sort of thing. These tabs, when you click on them, unfurl what's called a ribbon, and these are specific groups of actions that are collected underneath that particular tab. With Excel, the majority of the controls that you are going to be hitting are going to be located under the Home tab. The other tabs that you see on your screen have very specific intentions and actions that are underneath each one of those. And unless you start going beyond the beginning phase and into more of an intermediate or advanced, you're going to avoid going into those particular areas. But we will hit a couple of them today. Right below the ribbon area, you're going to have what's called the formula bar. And it's immediately adjacent to the little box that has the funny looking F with a little X after it. The formula bar is very, very handy to be able to proof what sort of calculation that you're trying to do. If you are going to, if you have any problems inside of it, you'll be able to immediately recognize it and be able to correct it right there. Below that, that is where our worksheet truly begins. These are the columns and rows that you will see on your screen. And a specific cell is where you're going to be putting in very particular pieces of data or information. It's identified by the column and the row number. A lot like doing a map where you kind of come across this way, you come across this way, and then where it meets, okay, is where you can be putting a particular piece of information. We call out those cells inside of Excel to be able to do certain operations with. And again, this is just a reminder. You've already been into Excel a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure that we put these particular terms out there because you will hear me refer to some of them in the rest of our class. All right, I'm going to go on to what are templates. All right, templates are user-created workbooks. Okay, they contain a number of worksheets already contained inside there. They contain formatted information. It prompts you for specific pieces of information to be inputted inside there to create the output of what you might be looking for. What you have to remember about templates are they are a great starting point to begin your design. They are not the do-all, end-all, and you're stuck with, this is all I can do with it. No, what you want to think of it as is that this is my jumping off point. And you take what they've created and you then further customize it. You create the true objective in your mind of what you want it to look like. I do want to throw a caution point out there in that when you do search for available workbooks on a particular topic, try to stay with ones that are from very reputable companies. For instance, Microsoft generates quite a number of them themselves, but there are some partners that they have that also create workbooks that are available for free download. If you see one that's created by a very specific user, okay, please use it with a little bit of caution, okay? They may contain viruses that come down. They're generated off of people's individual computers. They've been created by them. They may be offered for sale, let's say on Etsy or various other internet sites. Do some research on this particular user and make sure that they are very reputable before you try to use any of their products. You certainly do not want to download a virus onto your computer. Templates as they are do not contain your specific categories or calculations, nor do they contain details. They're usually very broad. And so you need to make sure that when you start using this, that you add these particular things that you're looking for inside of it. And at a certain point, templates stop, okay? So for instance, on the template that I sent to you, it's a monthly budget, all right? Works great for January 1 to January 31st, okay? But once you go into February, what happens, okay? It doesn't collect it, you have to start a new one. Well, we're going to change that. We're going to actually make it as a full annual budget. All right. So again, you need to then modify it to create that degree of completion that you're looking for. Some points to consider when you do use workbooks. You want to think of the basic concept of what you want to create. And in some cases, list down your priorities on a piece of paper, or even kind of just do a quick sketch of what you're looking for, especially when you want to add a graph. What does that graph look like in your mind? And put that down. Kind of rank your priorities, because some things may not be possible in the particular document that you've got. You may need to bring it in from another piece of software. When you have got this list created, translate those ideas into Excel. Okay, start with the first one, add it, test it before you go on to the next. Testing cannot be overstated when you do an Excel spreadsheet. When you're doing all of your calculations, you're expecting certain answers to be present. Don't just add the calculation and then quickly keep going on and have all of your data sitting there. Instead, put very simple numbers in that you can mentally arrive at the answer with. Put those in and see if the formula, as you've created it, arrives at that number. There's nothing worse than trying to put a formula in. You think you've got it right, you don't do the test, and suddenly your numbers are completely off. You want to verify the cells or cell range of your data. When you insert or delete rows of columns, make sure that you just do a very quick check of some of your formulas to make sure that they automatically updated as you thought that they would. And watch for cells when you clear the data. Sometimes those create formulas that are dividing by 0, and you're going to get error messages that appear. You need to revise and be prepared to revise and adjust as needed to achieve your result. Your objective is to try to create that workbook that works for you. I know you can do it, and if you do run into any obstacles or problems, I'm always here at the library at your disposal to help you walk your way through it. I've had a number of people in prior classes still call me just to be able to go through their product. They've reached a certain point and they say, Elaine, it's just not going to the next step. We look at it, and we're able to quickly find out what the problem is, and we get that workaround to get it to go. And one last reminder for you, you need to design for the audience person who's going to look for it. Excel is one of those tools that you really have to keep that rule in mind, because it may be, if you're the person that's working with it, you can design it as you need to see it. But if you're going to share that worksheet or that report with another person, how do they want to see it? And that is how you need to arrange your document, because they're looking for specific pieces of information. If they can't find it, they won't use it. All right, so what I'm going to do is, we've just finished the PowerPoint. We are now going to go into Excel at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for right now, and then I'm going to go into Excel at this point. So bear with me as I bring that up. Okay, on your screen right now, you should see Excel, and it should say New. And what I wanted to do when of the Excel file that I sent you, you will automatically be coming into the template that I've sent to you. But I want for you to see how easy it is to be able to find a template out there that's already preloaded onto your Excel program. When you come into Excel, you have that option of hitting New. And then right here, you have a search bar on the top. If I click on that and I just type the word budget, hit enter, it's going to go out. It's going to search through all sorts of areas that it can pull from. And it's going to give you a lot of different options on how to be able, or templates that are already created for you on specific budgets. And you can see that they're actually covering a variety of different areas for you. Right now we have on this one, this is a college expense budget. So you're looking at very specific things that a college person may come into to use. Here's a wedding expense budget. And here from a business is general ledger. All right, any of these are possible for you to use. And if you're interested in any of them, or you want a little bit more information, all you have to do is click on them. Now I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. And this is the one that I sent to everybody. So say I want to just get a little bit more information. It's very basic as to what the image is here. So I'm just going to click on it, and you'll see on your screen that it comes up big scale, and it gives you a little bit of a blurb over here on the right-hand side as to what it is that you want. If you do not want this particular one, or it doesn't seem that it contains some of the information that you're looking for, you can easily hit the X at this point, close it without doing anything further, and go back and click on another one. So say I would like to take a look at this one. Okay, and here's a different way that it's presented in this particular case, where you're looking at differences, both dollars and percentage amounts. But again, if it's something that I'm not looking for and I don't want it, I can hit the X. But I'm going to go back to this one because this is the one that we're going to actually talk through. All right. And if you want to do it, you just hit the word create. It thinks about it, and then it comes down to this. And this is exactly what the template was that I sent it to you. And this is what we're going to be using for the rest of the class to be able to start updating things. Usually, if it's coming in from Microsoft, you'll get some simple little prompts over here that tells you where that you need to update things. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is that this cell D1. D1 is the controller here for this little red tab that shoots the year out. Right now it's reading 2021. All right. I'm going to actually click on cell D1. So here's my column D. Here's my row 1. And where it meets and intersect is this one right here. Now, this is where it says to enter the budget year in this cell. Up here in my formula bar, you see that it's now reading equals year, parentheses, open parentheses, today, and then you see the open and closed parentheses that follow that. What that particular formula is telling you is that when this particular workbook or file is opened, it wants to go out, it wants to interface with your computer's computer, and it's going to take the date stamp from that computer, and it's going to recognize what the year is and deposit it in this red block here for viewing purposes, which is great if you're in the year that you're creating the budget, okay? But say you want to go back and you want to look at it from prior years. So I pull open a file or a workbook from last year, 2020, just to see what those numbers were to compare with how I'm doing this year in 2021. Well, when I open my 2020 file, this block, if I leave this formula as is, will automatically update to 2021. I don't want it to do that. I want it to stay in the current year that I have here. So what I would recommend in this cell D1 is to actually overwrite this formula to the year that you're doing. So if I just type in 2021, you'll see no change happened here on this ribbon, but it's locked into that year now. Nothing is going to update as you go in and out of this file over the course of the year or from one year to the next. It's fixed to 2021. All right, when I hit enter, I came down into this big block. It's a big merge cell, okay? And right now it's labeled as simple monthly budget. I want to update that to read Elaine's annual budget. So up here in the formula bar, you actually see the text written here. So I'm just going to put my cursor here after the word monthly, swipe it to the front. So I have that whole area highlighted, and I'm just going to replace the text there with my name. Whoops. Put my caps on. Elaine's annual budget. Press enter to get off of that particular cell, and you can see the change. All right, again, I'm just updating at this particular moment. One of the reasons why I like this particular template is because of this nice graph, okay? It's very visual in that it shows you what your income is, and it shows you what my expenses are. And this graph is dynamic. So as I change a number in either one of these areas, this graph will change, and this percentage here will tell me how much I've spent. So if you're looking for specific savings goals for yourself, this is a really great way to be able to see if you're on track throughout the year. So if you have an annual goal of, let's say, 20% to be saved, you just have to keep this number here at 80% or lower. Let me show you how this thing dynamically changes. So I'm just going to go over here to monthly income, and I'm going to switch this second number here from 1,000 to, let's say, 1,500. Okay, press enter to get the new number. I'm going to come back over here to the summary. All right, if you looked at it, you might have seen this graph quickly update, and you can see this number here go down. Why? Because I received a little bit more income that year, and this number now goes down. I've got extra amounts saved. My total income here also updated to reflect that new number. And this would be my balance, how much I truly have left over. All right, I like that dynamic nature of this particular graph a lot. That's why I chose this particular one for the class. Now, if I scroll down using my thumb wheel, scroll down the page a little bit, I have a lot of white space here. This is an excellent area to put those rules that I mentioned, legal agreements, as well as reminder notes to your tax preparer of how to take certain expenditures and apply it onto your tax return. So you could say, all right, even, I'm just going to put it down here, let's say cell B16. I'm just going to type the word notes. All right, press the enter key to come down a little bit if I want to, and then say, okay, I'm going to do like a divorce agreement. Claim 2 children as dependents on even years. Okay. All right, now, if you look at this particular cell, okay, I'm going to come back up here just so you kind of see it. So it's highlighted there with the outline. All right, it tells me what my note is. My tax preparer knows what it is. You can automatically see up here based on my year that this is an odd year, so I would not be able to claim children as dependents that year. But let's say you don't want to, as this is termed, wrap the text around. Keep it within the size of the cell. Up here on the top, under your Home tab, under the alignment, right now wrap text is highlighted. I can actually click on that to take it off, and it can then scroll across the page if I wanted to do that. All right, say you have another thing in here with your divorce decree. Say that you have a particular property that, let's say a rental property that you take half of the income for, and your partner takes the other half. All right, and you want to keep it all kind of grouped together. You can do this by 2 different ways. One, you can just go on to the next cell. So in this case, it would be B18. Okay, that's what this cell here that is highlighted would be B18, and you can type that in. Or say you want to keep all these things together a little bit tighter in one cell. This is a tip for you, a trick of how to do it. Come up here, back up here to B17 and place your cursor there in your formula bar at the end of the word years. All right, hold down your Alt key on your keyboard. And while you're holding it down, press the enter key. Now, yes, it looks like it blanked out. It did not. Actually, what it did, it advanced it to the next line that you can have inside of that cell. All right, so let's say rental property. 50, let's see, percent split of rental income is claimed. And again, these are just notes to the tax preparer or to yourself to remind you of how you set up your particular situation to the IRS. We only touch this stuff once a year. All right, so right now it doesn't look like it's showing there, but if I enlarge it, this cell, okay, and all I did was I came over here to the side here under the rows, and you see how right now I have my cursor is a dark red or dark black arrow that points to the right. If I come down here to where it borders between row 17 and 18, that cursor changed from an arrow to two arrows going vertically and up and down with a line between them. If you click and hold with your left mouse button, just click and hold it, and you drag it either up or down, you can extend the height of that particular row. You can do the same with any of the columns as you go across here. Okay. Now, because this is a template, you see how it's still continued to keep the wrap text. It just so happens that you just have to keep clicking on that to get it back right. But this is a great way to capture a lot of your information in one particular place, and it gives you the reminder notes of what you should be gathering for yourself to prepare your taxes. Again, we only handle this stuff once a year, so we may not remember that we have to do a 50% split. If you have to go back to look at your old and recreate what you did in your old tax preparer, then you lose time, and we don't want that to happen. But you can put extra notes down here in this blank spot at the bottom of your page, as well as you can put other graphs if you were interested in just seeing what it would be in various different scenarios, and have those dynamically created also. But this is the first page of your budget. Down here at the bottom of your screen, you see these three tabs. They're color coded. One says summary, one says monthly income, one says monthly expenses. All right, these are the three worksheets that you have available inside of this template right now. And the summary is just going to present this dynamic little overview for what you're going to have. To click on to the next one, the monthly income, you just have to click this worksheet tab down here at the bottom of your screen. So if you click on monthly income, it's switching the active worksheet in front of you. We're coming over to this side. Now, before I move up here to the contents, I want to point out what's happening down here at the bottom when you click on these worksheet tabs. You see right now that this used to be, I'm going to click back on the summary, this monthly income was this dark maroon red sort of color. When I click on monthly income and I make it active, it kind of fades to the background, that maroon color. It's just the indicator that it's the current sheet. The color is still there, but it just fades away. Summary now, you now see, is this dark green color with the white lettering over top of it. Okay. Once you click off of a worksheet, you can actually see the true colors that are there. Let me give you a tip. If you have more than one person working on a worksheet, it's really nice to have your tabs, your worksheet tabs, color-coded at that point, because you can tell your person, your other individual, very specifically, don't adjust any of the other colored tabs, stay strictly on the blue tabs or the yellow tabs or the red tabs, and they will only do their work inside of there without bothering any of the other worksheet tabs. It's great when you have more than one person that's in there, and we'll actually be doing that in a second as we start to customize further this particular Excel spreadsheet. All right, so one thing I want to do is I want to change this title here from monthly income to annual. So I'm just clicking here on this first cell, the title. I see it up here in my formula bar. So I'm just going to clear off the word monthly and put in annual. Pressing enter to witness the change. All right, right now, all of my incomes are labeled very generically as income 1, income 2, income 3. All right, means nothing to me. I don't know what refers to each, so I need to change the title of each to reflect a particular business as to what it needs to be. So for income 1, this could be a paycheck that you have from your main employer. So instead of reading it as income 1, I now want it to say, in this particular case, I'm employed by the city of Leesburg, so I'm going to actually write that in that cell. All right. For my next income, let's say I have a rental property. I'm just kind of making this up as I kind of go, but you'll see what the gist is. Rental property. And you may want to consider, because you have plenty of room here, to actually put an address in, especially if you have more than one rental property that you look for. So 100 East Main Street, Leesburg, which is the address of the library here. Income 3, if you happen to have more, you can easily keep loading these down here. Let's just say grass cutting business. And you may have some others. But say that you have more than 4 income streams coming to you and you want to keep adding some more. All right, so what I'm going to do, bear with me for just a second. I'm going to actually zoom in on this a little bit so you can see real close. All right, so if you ever have to kind of zoom in a little bit more, in the lower right corner of your screen, all right, you have a couple little options right down here on the base. This little slider bar that you see here allows you to either zoom in or zoom out, and you can just drag that slider left or right to be able to get a little bit closer. But why I'm zooming in is I want you to see this little itty bitty dark green smudge. It's the best way to be able to put it. There on your screen, it's at the lower corner of the table as is presented. If you need to add additional items, you're going to take your mouse, which right now has the cursor looking like a plus sign, and you're going to try to put it on top of that. When you do, you see how it went from the plus sign to a double-sided arrow. When it changes to the double-sided arrow, press and hold down and continue to hold down your left mouse button on your mouse and then drag down. I'm just going to add 2 more rows. You see the dark highlighted green around it. When I release it, it's automatically created 2 more rows onto my sheet here that I can continue to type in additional income streams for myself, and it will automatically total onto my summary page. So if I do grass cutting, let's say car wash, let's say teach a class. All right, and all of these can easily have numbers to them, okay? But you can keep adding, going down just by grabbing a hold of that little bitty corner and dragging it down the page. You automatically get your formatting with the highlighted here, so it will appear when you hit print. Okay, so right now, kind of captions what we've done so far. We've just been customizing based on titles. We've also went ahead and we enlarged our table here to represent additional income streams, but it's still one number. It's still relying on me to just say, okay, here's my number. I've already tallied it separately, and I'm just putting in the one grand number, all right? I don't want to do that. I want it to be a very flexible worksheet for myself. I want it to be able to enter in each time that I get a paycheck, and for it to automatically total for me. I want it to be a running document. So how do I do that? I create a detail page. All right. going to come down here to my worksheet tabs. And this is just a tip for you that if you want to enter and insert a sheet between in this case, the income tab and the expense tab to put these details in, this is the current or active sheet is the income, when I hit add a sheet, which is this little plus sign immediately here to the right, it will automatically insert immediately following our current one. So we were on income and I hit the add a sheet. This is where my sheet is, okay? If instead I wanted it to be at the end, you can either have monthly expenses as being the current sheet and then hit the plus sign, or you can just hit it as normal, but to drag it to a new location, if you just put your mouse here on the term sheet 1, click and hold it, and while holding it down, you can drag it to the end if you want it and deposit it. As soon as you release the mouse button, it will be relocated at that point. It's your option as to where you want it to be inserted. I personally like it to be right after my income stream, just because I know that that's where my details are going to be. So let me go ahead and show you how to label it. It is to your advantage to have all of your worksheet tabs named. When or if you ever start to link your software packages together. So like for instance, if you're going to do a mail merge between Excel and Word, part of the process when you identify which files that these things need to talk to one another, when you're talking with Excel, you want to specify which sheet to pull your information from. Having it labeled allows you to be able to quickly identify which sheet has the critical pieces of info that you want to pull, as well as if you ever have to go back and troubleshoot, you know where the stuff is supposed to be directed from. If you leave it as generic, then it puts a level of complexity to trying to troubleshoot any issues that you have coming out. So to be able to rename, what you do is you put your cursor here again on the name sheet 1, and we want to have options at this case. So we're going to click our right mouse button at this case, not our left, but our right. And when we click on our right, we're saying, give me options. And these are some of the things that we can do here. If I want to rename, I'm going to click on rename. And you see now that my name sheet 1 is now highlighted. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my new title, income details, press enter, and now my sheet has been renamed. To do the color that I'm talking to you about, to make sure that this is a colored operation, I'm just going to put my cursor again back here on my name. Now it says income details. Click my right mouse button, and here's my tab colors. So I'm going to just do it a little bit lighter red. Now, again, because this is my active sheet here, right, it's going to look like it's faded. It's not until I actually click off of it. So I'm going to click over here to monthly income just so you see it. Do you actually see the true color of that tab appear? All right, so coming back onto my income details, I'm going to start off here with my City of Leesburg paychecks. All right, this is where I want to be able to create this running total here and then transfer it across to the other sheet. So the first thing here I'm going to put in is paychecks from the City of Leesburg. Now again, because this is just a blank sheet, you're going to have to do your formatting here. It's going to default here to just the size of your cell at this point. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to be able to size your cells. Okay, so the first one is, see my cursor right now, it's in a dark downward facing arrow. If I bring it over here to the border between A and B, you see where it changes to those 2 double-sided arrow with the line in the middle. I can click with my left mouse button and drag it across, and it creates that. Now, if you ever have to go back, I'm going to hit the undo button here up on the top of my screen. The other way that you can do it, okay, is under my Home tab. This is my ribbon. Over here underneath my cells group, I have what's called a format option. If I click on that, one of my options here is column width. Right now it tells me what this column width is set up as is 8.38. I can delete that and put, let's say, 15. And it will automatically increase by that size. Whichever you feel the most comfortable on, I wanted to show you both options there. It's over to you as to which way you want to do. You can even do the same there with row height. All right, so at this point, what details you decide to include are completely over to you. But I'm going to have my first column as a date. My second one is my net income. All right, my third column, think about what we need to provide at this point to another tax preparer. This could be if you buy your own health care, or you buy your own supplemental insurance policy through your employer, okay? Your tax preparer wants to know if you've done any of that. You can actually see if you have it stripped out of your paycheck as one of your deductibles. You can actually print it out here. And again, you're putting in that total so they can easily get their information out. So say I bought a supplemental medical. I'm going to have it automatically. I'm going to adjust these column widths in just a second. I'm just going to start putting these things in just so you kind of see. Let's see, insurance. And say you want to know how much is pulled out for your 401k. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all 4 of these. Okay, so what I did is I clicked on the letter B as the column header, and I dragged across to E. So all of these 4 columns are now highlighted. I'm going to come back over here to my Home tab, cell group, hit Format, to my column widths. And let me go ahead and I'm just going to put 20 in there instead. Put a nice big number. Automatically sized it. To get off of the highlighted area, you just have to click anywhere here on your screen. All right, so this one here, I want to put dates in. All right, let's format this column as the date. I'm going to hit my column header A. Over here underneath my Home tab, under my numbers group, right now it's reading as general. I'm going to click this downward facing arrow. Here's different options that it has here. This one's going to be short date. All right, so if I put in, as an example, 2-17 stands for February 17th. If I click that there, I've automatically got the year added on that. And it's presented as a date format. All right, these 4 columns here, I want them to all be numbers. So I'm going to click on my B, continuing to hold down my left mouse button, dragging it across. Okay, now I've got these 4 columns highlighted. Here's my Home tab again. Underneath my numbers group, instead of leaving it as general, I have an option here of currency. I'm going to put it as currency, and you see it automatically updated up here too. So now if I put in a number, and I'm just going to randomly choose a number here of, let's say, 427.7. All right, and I put an enter in, it automatically formats it to currency with the 2 decimal points. If you want to take the decimal points off, all right, again, up here underneath the number group, under the Home tab. You have these two options here. Kind of just keep toggling back and forth between the two. All right, what this first one here on the left means is that you're increasing from the current setting for your currency of 2 decimal places and you want to increase it to 3. You're going to hit this button. If instead you want to come back to one less, you click on the right. So you can actually get rid of the currency here and it will automatically round up to your next number. If you want to maintain your current, your decimal places or increase them more, just click the one on the left. All right, but these are automatically set right now as all currencies. All right, so we would just be able to type in certain numbers here. Let's say I put 25 each time, and then with a 401, let's say I put 100. And again, these are just numbers I'm just pulling up off my head to show for illustration points. All right, so that's what, I got my first paycheck and I entered in my first pieces of data. Wonderful. All right, I get paid every other week. All right, so if I want to come down to, let's say 26 days or something like that, 29, so I'm going to say like on 30. Okay, so I just clicked on A30. I'm going to put the header in of total. And now I'm going to add a formula here to take everything that's going to be above it, total it all up. So I get a grand sum for the entire year. All right, so to start a formula, what you want to do is formulas always start with the equal sign. It tells Excel that whatever it's going to follow with this is going to be a formula. If you ever wanted to have an equal sign as part of like a note where you want to maintain that image, but not tell Excel that it's a formula, start your formula always off with a single quote mark. You'll assume then that anything following the single quote mark will be text. But we want the formula, so I just have the Excel, the equal sign there. All right. Formulas always are in capital letters. And as soon as I start typing the formula that I want, Excel is very good at prompting you as to what the rest of it should be. It's telling you that I'm going to take the sum. It says next that I need an opening parentheses, which I've placed. And now it's telling me add your numbers that you want to add together. There's a couple different ways that you can write summations, and I went ahead and that's part of this quick reference guide that I had sent to you. You can do it by arrange, where you have your first cell with a colon and then your last cell. Or you can do your first cell, comma, put another cell, like if you're going to add something from the other side of the worksheet, comma, and go all the way across. Or you can just write the 2 cells that you want to have added together. All right, what I want to do is I want to total up everything here from net income. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my thumb wheel to scroll up to the top of my screen, and I'm going to click on B4. You see how it's got this nice kind of highlighted line around the cell, but it's also moving. It's kind of hyphenated. It's saying, okay, I've chosen that first column. What else do I want to do? All right. I want to do the whole thing just prior to where I've got this total. So I'm going to click, and I'm just going to continue holding it down, my left mouse button down, drag it down the page. All right. So now I've got this entire range here identified. I'm going to put a closed parenthesis at that point, and that signals to Excel that that whole area is what I want summed. I press the enter key to witness the result. And I'm going to have this grand total in down here. So let me add another date in here and you can see this number change. So I'm just going to put 28 just to put a number in here. Let's say I get paid the same thing. All right, as soon as I clicked it here, this one updated here, okay? Which is what I want to do. I want this to be a very dynamic worksheet, constantly updating with itself to give me my running total. All right, now if I add all this together, this grand number is what I want to have come over here onto my income sheet, which again wants to translate over to my summary. So how do I update my income overall to reflect this running total? We're going to come back over here to the income page. And right now, if I click on C3 right here, it reads 2,500. It's just a number that was keyed in. I want to change this to reflect what's on my details page. To do that, all I have to do is delete my 2,500 and then put in a formula. Remember, all formulas begin with an equal sign. All right, but this is now I have to go to another worksheet because that's where my total is. So down here on the bottom, I'm going to click on my income details. I want to refer you up here to the formula bar right now. It'll actually tell Excel, go to income details page. Where on my income details page do I want this number to retrieve from? Right here on B30. So if I click on B30, looking up here on my formula bar, okay, it's going to say go Excel to find this number, go to the income details page, cell B30. That's where you're going to find my total. Once I press enter, I come back over to my income stream page, but now this is a calculation. It's going to take whatever's on my details page and deposit it here. This automatically is already coming over onto my front page, and you saw it adjust based on what was happening there. So what this does is I can continue to work here on my details, and my annual, this is really annual income, not monthly income, but annual income updates, and then my overall summary automatically updates. That's how you transfer information from one worksheet to the next. Now, these numbers here are critical for my tax preparer to know. So I'm going to go ahead and you can either recreate the formula here under each one of these columns to have the total, or you can use a fill command. If I click here on my original total here for my net income, it's basically saying sum everything from these cells up. Well, I want to do that exact same operation for each of these other three columns. What I can do is I can click and hold with my left mouse button, drag it across all three columns, so they're all highlighted there. And underneath my home tab, over here under my editing group, so on the very far right, you have the fill option. And if I click that option, you get this small pick list. And I'm going to say fill to the right. Basically what that says is to take what's ever here on this first highlighted cell and transfer it across here, increasing either by column or by rows based on what I've got highlighted. In this case, I have 3 more columns highlighted. So if I click on this, instead of it saying B4 to B28, it's now reading C4 to C28. This one here says D4 to D28. It went up by 1 letter based on the way that I highlighted. I didn't have to create the formula over again. All I had to do was fill across. All right, so again, we need to tell our tax preparer what these numbers were because there were things that I contributed in. So I come back over here to my monthly income. All right, and I want to put them underneath my paychecks. It's just the way my brain works. I want it all kind of organized as I've kind of got it in there. So I want to insert 3 lines in between City of Leesburg and my rental property. To insert, you click on your row header 4, And while I'm clicking with my left mouse button and holding it down, I'm dragging it down the page to highlight my next 3 rows. Okay. Under my Home tab, under my Cells group, I'm going to hit the word Insert. It will automatically take however many rows I've got inserted or highlighted and place that many rows at that location where I started. So now I have 3 rows. So what I can do here is I can, and I personally, this is just me, I love to actually see what I'm typing. So that's why you see me click up here on the formula bar. You don't have to do it. You can just start typing if you want. It will appear up there. I just like to actually have my little prompt sitting there blinking at me right here. It's just a personal preference. However you like to do it is over to you. So I'm just going to hit randomly 5 space bars just to indent it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to say supplemental medical plan. Hit enter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have my insurance plan. And these are the extra ones. These aren't ones that are contained with your pay. These are the things, those supplementals that you are voluntarily buying for. 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to do a 401k. All right, so here's my 3 headers. They correspond with what I have here on my income details. Now all I have to do is identify my totals over here. So I'm going to start off again with the formula of equal sign. Click on income details. Here's my supplemental medical, and here's my total right here. So I'm going to click on that cell and press the enter key. So each one of these, I'm going to do it again, equal sign, income details, insurance, enter. And then the last one on the 401. So now when my tax preparer looks at it, instead of them having to ask me, did you by chance purchase a supplemental medical plan? They'll see that it's here on my sheet, say, yes, you did, and this is how much I paid into it. Again, they've already got their answers right there in front of them. They know how much you spent for the year on that particular one, so they can key it right in. I haven't lost any time. All right, so again, here's your rental property. You can put that over here on income details, do this exact same thing. Grass cutting business, car wash, however you want to have your details, all right? That's your incomes. All right, let's come over here to the expenses at this point. All right, let me kind of zoom in a little bit to kind of make these a little bit bigger for us on our screen. All right, again, this is my annual instead of monthly, so I'm just going to update that name. All right, here's my mortgage. Again, this is assuming that you're doing it by month. I want it by year. So I'm going to want to create another expense details page to be able to capture all of this sort of stuff. Okay, so this one here, we'll do a little bit. I'm going to show you some other options here versus just doing a duplicate of what we did on the income side. You can do the same thing over here. We're going to do some changes as for a medical, because one of our questions that are asked by our tax preparer is whether or not we had any medical expenses. So right now, looking down my list, I don't see anything that's labeled as medical. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to create a couple of lines down here. All right, here is my little schmutz, as I call it, down here at the end. My cursor right now is a big plus sign. I'm going to put it over top of it, wait till it changes to the double arrows, and then I'm going to drag it down one line. Okay, automatically formatted for me, and I'm going to put medical here. Whoops, I have my caps lock still stuck on. Sorry about that. Medical expenses. And what I like to do is actually put the doctor's name. So I'm just gonna name him as Dr. Let's see here. I got a Jones. Okay. All right. So we're actually going to create a details page, but I'm going to illustrate what I can do here for medical expenses. All right. So I need to add a sheet. So down here at the bottom where I have my worksheet tabs, I'm going to hit this little plus sign. So it's inserted a brand new active sheet here. I'm going to rename it. So I'm going to put my cursor here on the title, do a right mouse click, click rename. And I'm going to do, whoops, too many X's. Expense details. I'm going to then change the color. So I'm going to put my cursor back on that tab name again. Press my right mouse button, click tab color, and then I'm going to change it to just yellow. Okay, just a random color, but that's what it's there for. All right, so I'm going to start here. I'll come up a little bit so you can see it a little bit easier. I'm going to start typing here. So I'm going to say my medical. All right, I'm going to resize this automatically there. I'm going to say, let's say provider. Yeah, I want to say Dr. Jones. All right, you may recognize this as being a question that your tax preparer has asked you before is what is the mileage to and from Dr. Jones's office to your house? Okay. You want to know what that number is. So let's just say easy 20 miles. All right, this is a figure that your tax preparer will ask you for. And immediately below this, you want a date. You want any copays that you've done. You want any invoiced bills. You know that they never cover the complete cost and you always get an invoice later. And then you have some ability for some comments. Okay, so I want this to be labeled as, so what I did is I clicked on A, column header A, under my home tab, came over to my numbers group, clicked on this downward facing arrow, I changed the short date. Okay, so now if I do today's date, 2-17, and that's all you really have to type in is just the month with a dash and then the day. It will automatically fill out. All right, these two things here, I want to set them up as currency. So I just highlighted B and C columns by clicking on B and then just dragging it to C. So these two columns are highlighted. Then under my number group, I hit this currency tab, the one with the little dollar sign. Okay, so let's say I paid a $30 copay or $35 copay, and then because my doctor just loves me so much, they invoiced me for an additional $100. Wonderful people that they are. All right, so we've got a couple of things in here, and I could say a copay, let's see here, plus the bill. And this is just some, however you want to notate it. Let's say annual checkup. Okay. Let's say I have another one that I go back for, let's say 2 days later. All right, I have copay, but I don't have any invoice bills. And this was test results. Whatever, okay. So now I have some totals inside of here that I need to be able to provide. So coming down a little bit farther, I don't anticipate having a lot of visits there to Dr. Jones, but there'll be a couple. Okay, so we want a total, but then I want a total mileage. All right, because this number right here, this total mileage, is what your tax preparer is going to use on your tax return. So I'm going to show you a couple of formulas here. First of all, we want to sum what all these things here. We have our copay and we have our invoice bills that we paid. So start off with the formula, the equal sign. I'm going to write sum, okay, with the starting parentheses. Now, in our income details, I kept it as one straight column. This one, I want 2 columns worth. Can it sum it? Definitely. You click on your first cell, in this case B6. It's highlighted there with that moving hyphenated box. I click and continue to hold down my left mouse button, and I drag it down to include both columns B and C for all of these cells. So when I release it, my formula now reads B6 colon to C14. And then I'm going to close the parentheses to signal to Excel that my formula is complete and press enter. So now it's summed everything inside of here. So you could have multiple visits. You could have a copay on one, but no invoice bill on the second. You could have the combination of the two, or it could be a single invoice bill that you went to the doctor's office to pay. All right, but it's going to sum it automatically here for you. Now, how do we get our total mileage? Well, I want this to be dynamic. I don't want to sit there and add it up and do a mental number. I want it to do it automatically for me. So this is a new formula for you. I'm going to start it off with the equal sign. And what I want to have happen is I want it to count. How many visits did I go to Dr. Jones? If I left it, and I want you to read what it says here. If I start typing out the operation, the function that I want to do, count, the very first one gives you a little bit of an explanation. Counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers, okay? Well, I don't want it to recount these things here because it's just going to count what's inside of here. So in this case, it's going to say 35 plus 35, and we're going to count to 70. All right, instead, I really want to take a look at these dates because these are the dates that I actually went to Dr. Jones's office. But these aren't numbers, they're dates. So instead, I want to use count A. So if I click on count A, counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So if they're filled in with text or a date, it will automatically count the number of instances that are there, okay? So count A is the one that I want. So if I double click on, or just click on count A, my formula starts and it'll actually fill in the additional information that I need. Count A with the opening parentheses, and it's asking me for my range. So I click on A6, and I just drag it down to A14, because every time I've entered a date, I have physically driven to Dr. Jones's office. I'm going to close my parentheses to tell Excel that my formula is done, and I'm going to press the enter key. All right, so right now it's saying 2. Don't worry about it yet. All right. It doesn't tell me mileage. It just says, in this case, because I'm under this column, which I've formatted as currency, we're going to say, instead, we're going to change this to number. But I want to take off the decimal points. So up here under my number group, I'm going to remove my decimals, which is the right one, decrease the decimal. Clicked it once, I got rid of 1 decimal. Clicked it the second time, I got rid of the second. But this just tells me the number of trips that I had here. I want mileage. So I want to take this number and I want to multiply it by my round trip mileage. So I'm going to change this back to a number. Okay. And the only reason I had to do that is because I've got this placed on a column that I've totally already named it as being currency. I need to switch it back to just a plain number. Okay. So I want to take this one here and I'm going to put parentheses around it because I want this count to be multiplied by something. So if I started with the parentheses, it means first do this count, and then what I'm going to tell it to do next is multiply it. And the symbol for multiplication is the little stars. You hold down the shift key and then press your number 8. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to highlight cell B3. So you see, and also it changes color. My original count is in blue. This next operation that I'm telling you to do, they changed it to color. So now it's like this little faint shade of red. I'm going to close my parentheses. This is a great way that Excel shows you how to proof your formulas. So right now, my value when I press enter should be 40. And it is. Again, this is how you also test your formulas. Make it very simple for yourself to be able to verify that your formulas are correct. We have 2 instances where I physically drove to Dr. Jones's office. My round trip mileage was 20 miles each case. So 20 plus 20 should be 40. And that's what I'm getting right here. I need to transfer this information to my monthly or my annual expenses sheet here. So my tax preparer knows how much I used. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to monthly expenses. Here's my line item for Dr. Jones. So I want to first put my amount here that I spent. So I'm going to put an equal sign. Come over here to expense details, and I misspelled that tab there. I apologize. I'll correct that in a second. I clicked on my total here, press enter, and so now I have my total for medical expenses for Dr. Jones. But I know my tax preparer is going to ask me for mileage, so how do I get it onto this sheet? I have to add another column to the side. So I'll click over here so you can see it a little bit better. Here's my little end of my sheet here, that little smooch. All right, I'm going to wait till my cursor, I'm going to put my cursor right on top of it, wait till it switches from the plus to the 2-sided arrow. And instead of going down, I'm going to go to the side. I'm going to come over 2 columns. Okay. Now, my column D is real tiny, and I want to put that in as some notes. So I want to stretch this out just a tiny bit. I'm going to put mileage. So that signals this is my mileage to Dr. Jones. And in this column here, this is where I'm going to put my mileage. So I'm going to put my equal sign, my expense, down here for my total for Dr. Jones. Press my enter key, and here's this. So again, here is, I'm going to move this little image here for a second. So here, when my tax preparer takes my sheet, they're going to ask me, did you have any medical expenses for the year? Oh, yes, I see that you visited Dr. Jones. You spent $170 for the year, and this is the total mileage it took you back and forth to go see him. Okay. Again, all the numbers are presented there, and we've got it there for him. You can continue to add more details here. I'm going to update this name here. Just, it bothers me. I got it misspelled. There it is. But you can add additional doctors in here. You can take any of the other expenses that you see there to do the same, to create a running tally. So for instance, your mortgage, you can put your mortgage running down with your total, bring your total over to this overall page. and which then translates over here onto the summary. And you've got everything all contained for a tax preparer as well as yourself to be able to make decisions on how to spend your money going forward. When you hit print, okay, and I do show you the instructions on how to set up these detail pages to be able to set up print detail. What it's going to look like is this. Okay, I've actually printed the 3 pages. Here's your summary where you would have your overall view. If we had any notes down here, it would be automatically listed. This is your tax preparer will look at those notes to refresh their memory about how to set up your document. When they switch to the next page here, here would be your income page. Here would be all of your line items there for additional pieces of income that would come in. Of course, with the paychecks, they'd have your W-2s, but all those other income streams that we listed there may not have a W-2 coming from an employer. So that's why they would need to know your rental income, how much was it? If we were doing our car wash, how much did we earn from that? Because that's pretty much cash only that we get from people. Grass cutting, again, you're self-employed in that particular case. How much did you earn? It would all be listed here. They'd be able to do an automatic total for you. When they flip to your expense side, they know how much you've spent for the year on various different areas. If on one of the rules that you have out in front that said for a home office that you were going to take 25% of your home expenses to be able to say, I'm using it as a home office, they would be able to take your electric bill, multiply it by 0.25, and boom, that's how much you would be able to allocate towards a home office. If you had here's your like student loans, they want to know how much you paid towards that, you'd have that there. But obviously a student loan, you would have a sheet from your provider at that point. They're going to ask you about your medical expenses. Here they are. They're listed right here. They can immediately type that in and keep going. Any expenses that you would have for rental properties. And again, they're going to want to know how many times did you visit your rental property? What updates did you have to do? Did you have to do maintenance on it? Did you pay your sales tax? You can put all that stuff on your details page. Make sure that it copies over onto your main expense sheet, and you've got everything set up for yourself for the tax person. When you go on to your next year for 2022, you just make a duplicate of this particular workbook. Okay, just make a copy of it, rename it to 2022, clear out all of the details. So for instance, on this page that you see here on the screen, under medical, we know we're still going to go see Dr. Jones. We know that it's still 20 miles to get to him. All right, all we have to do is just clean off these things, just highlight them and press the delete button. And now we're set to go for 2022 of to type in our new stuff, and it automatically transfers. Our table is already set. Our triggers to remind us of how much we took out of each category on our tax return is already set because our rules are printed on page 1. It just does a really good trigger for yourself and be able to make some really good decisions on how to spend your money as well as to try to very easily get your taxes prepared. At this point, I'm going to stop. It's a lot of information to try to absorb at one particular time. I did talk about at the very beginning of the class about the ability to put additional graphs there on the summary page. On March 11th, I'm going to be holding a very small class, meaning that it's only going to be a very brief one, about 15 minutes, on how to actually create a graph using Excel. And you can actually put that information right there on that first page. So if you're interested in learning how to do graphs, that's going to be an intermediate class for us. And it will be held on March 11th, and you're welcome to sign up for that. But at this point, I want to just stop it, open the floor up for some questions at this point. So that way we'll be able to make this more customized to yourself. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop my screen share at this point. And I'm going to open the floor at this moment to any sort of questions that you may have. And remember, to ask a question, just press your space bar, be able to ask your question, and then when you release it, I'll be able to provide you the answer. Does anybody have anything? Okay, if nobody has any more, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop my recording at this moment.